Well, thank you, Professor Levine, for the invitation. It's always fun to be back in FIT. And it's always great to be a part of any collaboration with Praveen. We have been collaborating for the last 10 years. And thank you. It's, again, a fun project to work. Before I begin, I'm going to play this video for you. It's a short 2-minute video. And then we'll begin talking about the dying river. Okay? So here you go. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for being here tonight. I'm just looking for the PowerPoint. Oh, it's right here. Okay. Working? Okay. So, United Nations has actually designated March 22 as World Water Day, which basically aims to provide clean, accessible, and affordable water to everyone. So it's only fitting that today we are discussing water in the form of one of India's crucial, holy, and yet one of the most polluted rivers, Yamuna. Pulitzer Prize-winning Mojave American poet Natalie Diaz, in her 2020 book titled Post-Colonial Love Poem, writes, and I quote, "Water remembers everything. It travels through and over. If you have been in water, part of you remains there still." Throughout history, rivers have been crucial to the birth of civilizations. And most of the first ancient civilizations were established near the water. And people used it for all kinds of activities: drinking, washing, agriculture, etc. Not only that, but rivers also became lifelines for these civilizations. People used them for transportation, which eventually opened up opportunities for trading. I'm sure in your middle and high schools, you learned about that 97% of the water on Earth is in the oceans. About 2% is in polar ice caps and glaciers. and remaining 1% is fresh water in rivers, lakes, and groundwater sources. There are about 10 perennial rivers in India, most in the northern part. And most large rivers are perennial, which means they maintain the flow throughout the year. However, most of the perennial rivers in India are now turning seasonal, with fragmented and intermittent flows. And India is only one of the many places where this trend is happening. Here in the United States, some of the most endangered rivers are the upper Mississippi and lower Missouri, whose combined basins span 9 states across the Midwest. Nearly 15 million people rely on the upper Mississippi for drinking water. In addition, its basin produces 92% of the nation's agricultural exports, and the river is home to 25% of American fish species. However, due to the devastating floods in 2019, many homes, farms, and roads were submerged in some areas for more than 100 days. Drought in the western United States has had dire consequences for the Colorado River, the lifeline of the American West. More than 40 million people across 7 US states and Mexico get their water from the Colorado River, where demand now exceeds supplies. Today, the Colorado River is running out of water and is listed as the most endangered major river in the United States. As I said in the beginning, rivers have been crucial in the birth and development of civilizations. Most of Indian society was shaped by its rivers. So much so that India is referred to as the land of 7 rivers. Rivers in India are mainly classified based on their sources as Himalayan and peninsular rivers. The major Himalayan rivers are the Indus, Ganga, Yamuna, and Brahmaputra. The major peninsular rivers are Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, and Kaveri. Mohenjo-daro and Harappa's mighty civilizations came up along the Indus, Satluj, and the ancient Saraswati river banks. The southern part of India developed around the Godavari, Krishna, and Kaveri rivers. In fact, rivers are so integral to the identity of Indian subcontinent that the country India actually derives its name from the river Indus, which gave rise to the most significant ancient human civilizations. India is a Greek and Latin term for the country of the river Indus. Indus River emerges in the mountain springs of Mount Kailash in western Tibet and flows through the disputed region of Kashmir and eventually through Pakistan before emptying into the Arabian Sea near the port city of Karachi. As you can tell, rivers are significant in the Indian subcontinent. They are considered holy, and Hindus worship them. In fact, the current Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, launched his 2014 election campaign from the banks of the Ganges in the city of Varanasi, declaring that he had been called on by Mother Ganga to restore the river, which is considered the holiest of rivers by millions of Hindus. Yet Ganga, or Ganges, remains one of India's most polluted rivers. In fact, in 2018, one of India's leading environmentalists died while protesting hydroelectric projects on Ganga and its tributaries, including illegal sand mining activities. Guru Das Agarwal was a former environmental engineering professor at the Indian Institute of Technology in Kanpur in India. He studied at UC Berkeley and was the first head of India's Central Pollution Control Board. In June 2018, he started his 111-day hunger strike, hoping that he would compel current India's Hindu right-wing government to work on its promise of cleaning up the Ganga. In his letter to Prime Minister Modi, Agarwal wrote, and I quote, "In the past 4 years, all actions undertaken by your government have not at all been gainful to Ganga. And in her place, gains are to be seen only for the corporate sector and several business houses." The Modi government has initiated many projects, including waterways, riverfront development, and interlinking of rivers that actually have adversely affected the Ganga. In fact, Himanshu Thakur, who is a river expert and coordinator of the South Asia Network on Dams, Rivers, and People, it's a nonprofit based in New Delhi, he said that commerce has prioritized conservation. It is interesting to note that earlier fasts by Agarwal had been successful. For example, in 2009, the then Prime Minister of India, Manmohan Singh, actually decided to cancel a hydropower project on the Bhagirathi River, a source stream of the Ganga in northern India, and declared part of the river an eco-sensitive zone. The current Indian Prime Minister, Modi, by contrast, did not take any action, nor did he respond to Agarwal's letters. In fact, on October 9, 2018, Agarwal, who until then had survived on a honey water mix, decided to stop drinking as well. He was then picked up by the police and taken to All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Rishikesh to be force-fed. But he died the next day. Narendra Modi promptly tweeted that he was saddened by Agarwal's demise, which further upset the environmentalists. In fact, Thakur, who is a Delhi-based river expert and coordinator of South Asia Network on Dams, Rivers, and People, said that no response to Agarwal's letters from Modi actually killed him. He also noted that the state of Ganga is worse today than in May 2014, when Modi government took over, and it continues to worsen. The 1999 Citizens' Fifth Report states, and I quote, you can also see it on the screen, "India has had a multi-millennial tradition of worshipping rivers. Even though Hindu scholars will not get tired of extolling the ecological elements of Hinduism, of which indeed there are many, there is nonetheless the disparity between the word and the deed. Indians, including the river-worshipping Hindus, do not think twice before polluting a river." Journalist Samar Halarkar, back in 1997, wrote about what he called the rivers of death. He wrote, and I quote, "Once symbols of purity and life for India's teeming millions, India's rivers are today foul receptacles of sewage and toxic waste. If the poisoning of our rivers is not stopped, more disease and death seem inevitable." Yamuna, another of the holy rivers in India, and a tributary of the sacred Ganga, and our topic of interest today, is also crying for help. Yamuna is worshipped as a goddess in Hinduism, and she is the twin sister of Yama, who is the god of death. And Yamuna and Ganga are often depicted at the entrance of sacred precincts or on sanctuary door jambs to ensure that the visitor is symbolically purified before entering. Yamuna is portrayed as a beautiful woman carrying a blue lotus, fly whisk, and a water pot. Her mount is a tortoise because many live or used to live in her waters. But in late 2021, a toxic layer of foam coated parts of Yamuna near India's capital, Delhi, as Hindus gathered on its banks to celebrate Chhat Puja, which is a festival dedicated to the Hindu sun god, Lord Surya, where fasting women in knee-deep waters offer agriya, which is a Vedic practice of offering water to the sun in the morning. The white froth, a mixture of sewage and industrial waste, formed in sections of the Yamuna River, which actually flows about 855 miles south from the Himalayas through several states. According to the news reports, the pungent foam contained high levels of ammonia and phosphates, resulting in respiratory and skin problems. Many Hindu devotees were seen wading through the toxic foam to bathe and pray in the river, despite deadly pollution. In fact, Reuters interviewed one of the Hindu devotees named Gunjan Devi, who said that she had no choice but to bathe in the polluted waters. She said, and I quote, "The water is extremely dirty, but we don't have many options. It's a ritual to take a bath in a water body, so we have come here to bathe." According to the Press Trust of India, 15 boats were deployed by the government to remove the foam, but it had already caused significant damage. Industrial waste is among India's top sources of pollution in rivers today. In fact, the discharge from industries is directly pumped into the rivers without treatment, affecting aquatic life and humans. But besides industrial waste, eutrophication is another reason impacting rivers in India. Eutrophication is often induced due to improper agricultural practices and city sewage discharge into the rivers. Eutrophication actually leads to the overgrowth of plants and algae in aquatic ecosystems and can actually render a water body unusable for many uses, from fishing to swimming to drinking water. And the most conspicuous effect of eutrophication is the creation of dense blooms of foul-smelling phytoplankton that reduce water clarity and harm water quality. addition, algal blooms limit light penetration, reducing growth and then causing death of plants in littoral zones, while also lowering the success of predators that actually need light to pursue and catch prey. Not only that, but high rates of photosynthesis are also associated with eutrophication, and then can actually deplete dissolved inorganic carbon and raise pH to extreme levels during the day. Elevated pH can in turn blind organisms that actually rely on the perception of dissolved chemical cues for survival by impairing their chemosensory abilities. When these dense algal blooms eventually die, microbial decomposition severely depletes dissolved oxygen, creating a dead zone which lacks sufficient oxygen to support most organisms. Some social and religious practices also harm the rivers, which include dumping dead bodies in the water. In fact, in 2021, thousands of dead bodies were found floating in the Yamuna River during the country's deadly second wave, which killed more than 120,000 and infected 12 million people. Ganga and Yamuna rivers run through some of India's worst hit COVID-19 regions, and most Hindu crematoriums are close to its banks. According to news reports, fear of COVID-19 led villagers to dump dead bodies in the rivers instead of cremating them. Also, Hindu festivals like Ganpati Puja, also known as Ganesh Chaturthi, commemorating the birth of the Hindu god Ganesha, are among the major pollutants of rivers in India, including Yamuna. The festival is marked with the installation of Ganesha's idols, privately in homes and publicly on elaborate pandals, which are basically temporary stages, and eventually immersing the idols in the water bodies. Earlier, the idols were made with clay and colored with natural colors like turmeric, and then worshipped with natural things like coconut, yogurt, milk, and water. But today, they are made of plaster of Paris, small iron rods, clay, bamboo, and decorated with different paints such as varnish, watercolors, etc. When idols made of these materials are immersed in water, it increases pollution in water bodies. And several studies show the impact of idol immersion on water bodies. The Central Pollution Control Board, or CPCB, studied the impact of immersion of Ganesh idols on lakes in India. They concluded that the water quality had depleted, the acid content had increased, and the total dissolved solids had increased by 100%. And the oxygen level had also reduced. In addition, even heavy metals like iron or copper had risen by 10 times in the composition of the water. In 2021, the Delhi government's pollution control body, called Delhi Pollution Control Committee, or DPCC, asked district magistrates to ensure that idols are not immersed in Yamuna or any other water body in the national capital, because it creates severe problems, such as toxic chemicals used in their preparation, which actually leach out in the water. In fact, violations are actually punishable with a fine of rupees 50,000, around $605, or a jail term of up till 6 years. Moreover, to respect the tradition of immersing idols in water, the DPCC actually asked urban local bodies to create artificial ponds near residential areas for idol immersion. Delhi-based environmentalist Vimlendu Jha actually notes that the lack of political intent, zero urgencies in cleaning the Yamuna, and minimal action on the ground were actually reasons behind the frequent river foaming. In a news report in Outlook magazine in 2022, Jha was quoted saying, "Delhi empties more than 3,500 million liters of municipal sewage in the river. And despite tall claims, over 50% of the sewage is either untreated or not adequately treated and flows directly into Yamuna. Lack of minimum flow in the river is another major cause of Yamuna's pollution." Praveen K, another environmentalist, alleged that toxic foam-covered sections of river are actually due to the negligence and absence of real action on the ground. He was quoted in a news report saying, and I quote, "On the Yamuna, scores of farmhouses and industries are discharging pollutants into the river. There are about 92 drains that open directly into Yamuna, out of which 62 are untapped. For decades, sections of the Yamuna have been plagued by the dumping of toxic chemicals and untreated sewage. As a result, the river appears dark and sludgy in several parts, while plastic waste lines its banks." Bhim Singh Rawat, who works with South Asia Network on Dams, Rivers and People, notes, and I quote, "Yamuna in Delhi is an ecologically dead river. Why? Because it does not have fish or freshwater birds for years now." Yamuna is most polluted in areas surrounding Delhi, owing to the city's dense population and high levels of waste. The Delhi stretch of the Yamuna River is about 22 kilometers, around 13 miles, starting from Wazirabad Barrage to Okhla Barrage, which accounts for 2% of the river's length that actually flows through the capital. Yet this stretch alone is responsible for 76% of the river's pollution. Around 90% of the wastewater from households directly pours into the river untreated. And this wastewater comprises of laundry detergents and other chemicals, increasing the water's phosphate content and as such leading to froth formation. And not only that, but this stretch is also the primary source of 70% of Delhi's water supply, which roughly translates to 57 million people. In 2017, a court in the northern state of Uttarakhand ordered that Ganga and its main tributary, the Yamuna, be accorded the status of living human entities, which means polluting or damaging the rivers will be legally equivalent to harming a person. The judges cited the example of the Wanganai River, which is revered by the indigenous Maori people and was declared a living entity with full rights by the New Zealand government in August 2017. But Indian courts and environmentalists have been critical of 3 decades of government efforts to clean up the holy rivers. The last cleanup initiative deadline was set for 2018, which was never met. To restore the river, the Yamuna Action Plan, or YAP, a restoration project, was introduced in 1993. It's a bilateral project between the government of India and Japan, where Japan offered loan assistance to implement YAP, which is Yamuna Action Plan. Subsequently, two phases, YAP 2 and YAP 3, were initiated in 2004 and 2008, respectively. But unfortunately, the mission to clean Ganga and Yamuna, which includes YAP, has failed, according to the Parliamentary Committee on Environment and Forests. In the name of cleaning the Yamuna River, rupees 1,500 crore or $150 million were spent on the Yamuna Action Plan, and a plan of rupees 1174 crores or $11.74 billion was redrawn. While rupees 460 crore or $4.6 billion has been given for cleaning Yamuna under the Namami Gange program, which is an integrated conservation mission approved as a flagship program by the Union Government of India. But Yamuna has remained the same, and even worse, according to the reports. But as the world receded inside their homes during COVID-19, something miraculous happened in Yamuna. According to the Delhi Pollution Control Committee findings, Yamuna became 33% cleaner than before the lockdown during COVID-19 crisis. Environmental conservator Divan Singh said that rivers clean themselves due to their biological potential. They hope the government will work on its plan to stop the pollution of Yamuna. In fact, earlier this year, a high-level committee constituted by the National Green Tribunal, or NGT, for the rejuvenation of the Yamuna chalked out a 6-month action plan till June with monthly targets. The committee stressed time-bound actions on right parameters. That includes enhancement of the sewage treatment capacity in Delhi, augmentation of STPs, tapping of drains, and treatment of sewage in 44 sub-drains, extension of the sewage network in all 1799 unauthorized colonies, upgrade of 13 CETPS, which is common effluent treatment plants for treatment, management of industrial effluents, and ensuring minimal environmental flow in Yamuna using interstate coordination. Only time will tell whether these measures will be implemented and whether Yamuna will revive. For now, one can only hope. I want to conclude my presentation by sharing some of the photos from our ongoing project on Yamuna, which is actually on display in the library, and reciting a Yamuna prayer song called Yamuna Aarti that Hindus chant as they worship the river. We worship you, Sri Yamuna Ji. We offer you a lamp of affectionate love that shines with the light of our souls. You have a dark complexion, wear dark clothing, and are the lover of the beautiful Dark Lord. You are the daughter of the sun, sister of the Lord of Death, and princess of Mount Kalinda. You flow on all sides of Vrindavan, arranging the love play of Radha and Krishna. A pitcher of your pure water is the chief queen of the Lord of Dwarka. You satisfy the heart by fulfilling all goals of life. All sins are destroyed merely by seeing or touching you. I dedicate all to that drop of divine nectar on your feet. Thank you.